Hello? Where are we exactly? Ah, the Milky Way. Let's get closer to our solar system. Maybe to our planet? What year is it? 1933. Something happened then, didn't it? Let's go to Europe. Maybe Germany, actually. Ah, exactly. A strange Austrian painter with a weird mustache and fascist ideals came to power. What was his name again?
It was Hitler.
Ah, right. Him. And what was his party called again?
NSDAP.
Well, things are about to get, let's say, interesting. But if you're a kid, congratulations! Your entire childhood is now owned by the government.
What about school? Yeah, but only if you like learning about the great Germany and why so many people don't deserve to live here. Also, do not forget to say Heil Hitler before you learn math. That's important. Oh, and history class? Spoiler alert, the Germany is always the hero.
But back on a serious note, this is the story how the Nazi regime shaped an entire generation through school, youth organizations, propaganda, and racial ideology. This is the history of young people in Nazi Germany.
After 1933, the Nazi regime began transforming the entire German school system into a tool of political indoctrination. Education was no longer about knowledge and critical thinking. It became a means of shaping obedient, ideologically pure citizens loyal to the Führer. The Ministry of Education centralized control over every subject, every schoolbook, and every teacher. Teachers were required to join the National Socialist Teachers League and to prove their racial and political reliability. Those who were Jewish, communist, or simply unwilling to promote Nazi ideas were dismissed. The curriculum was rewritten to serve Nazi goals. History was reduced to nationalist myth, glorifying the German Empire and World War I, while blaming Jews and Marxists for Germany's defeat. Biology lessons became racial science, proving Aryan superiority through pseudoscientific charts and school measurements. Even math was politicized. Word problems were rewritten to include anti-Semitic content. Physical education was emphasized not just for health, but to build bodies ready for war. By 1941, university enrollment had collapsed. Students who failed ideological or physical tests were expelled. Education, once a path to opportunity, had become a gateway to propaganda and military preparation.
The Nazis understood that education alone wasn't enough. Young people's hearts and loyalties had to be captured in their free time too. That meant that all independent youth organizations were banned. In their place stood the Hitlerjugend for boys and the Bund Deutscher Mädel for girls. Participation was not only encouraged, it was expected and later made mandatory. By the outbreak of the war in 1939, almost 9 million young people were enrolled. Boys began their journey in the Jungvolk at age 10. At 14, they were graduated into the Hitler Youth, where discipline, loyalty, and physical fitness were enforced through military-style training, hikes, sports, and ideological study. Boys were taught to be tough, they obey orders, and to prepare for a future in the Wehrmacht or the SS. Girls were prepared for a different role: motherhood. The League of German Girls focused on domestic skills, fitness, and moral discipline. Girls learned about the racial purity, proper behavior, and how to raise children who would serve the Reich. Their duty was to the family and the state, first as daughters, then as mothers. These organizations created a powerful sense of community. The uniforms, songs, and rituals inspired pride and belonging, but at the same time they erased individuality. Many children saw their group leaders as more trustworthy than even their own parents.
The Nazi regime understood the power of repetition and emotion. Propaganda wasn't just for the adults. Children's books, school posters, cartoons, board games, and even songs were designed to implant Nazi ideas at the earliest age possible. Anti-Semitic messages were everywhere. Jews were portrayed as greedy, diseased and dangerous. The Hitler Youth taught that the Jewish population was not just different, but responsible for every German misfortune. Even the home wasn't safe from this influence. Youth were taught to report any form of disloyalty, even from their parents or teachers. Private thoughts became dangerous. Trust was replaced by surveillance. This strategy worked. For many, Nazism wasn't an external force. It was what they were taught to believe by their teachers, their leaders, yeah, and even their friends.
At the center of Nazi ideology was the belief in racial hierarchy. Aryans, especially those who met the stereotypical physical ideals, blonde hair, blue eyes, strong physique, were celebrated as the master race. Other groups, especially Jews, Slavs, Roma, and disabled people, were deemed inferior or even dangerous. Women were essential to the Nazi vision, but only as mothers. Their primary duty was to produce racially pure children. Unmarried women were encouraged to donate a child to the Führer. Marriage loans were offered to Aryan couples, with reductions based on the number of children. The Mother's Cross honored those with large families. While some women left jobs willingly, many were forced out of their professional roles. They were expected to dress plainly, avoid makeup, and act with discipline. The ideal German woman was not independent, but supportive, loyal, and fertile.
Nazis taught that Germany needed Lebensraum or living space to thrive. Young people were told that land in Eastern Europe, especially Poland and the Soviet Union, was rightfully German. Non-Germans, especially Slavs, were seen as inferior and expendable. Antisemitism was presented as fact, not opinion. Jews were blamed for the Treaty of Versailles, inflation, communism, and cultural decay. These lies were reinforced daily in lessons, posters, books, and conversations. By the time the Holocaust began, thousands of German children had already been trained to view Jews as non-human. The path to genocide began not in the camps, but in the classrooms and youth centers of Nazi Germany.
As the war intensified, the regime's demand for soldiers grew. Boys as young as the age of 12 were handed Panzerfausts or rocket launchers and ordered to defend their neighborhoods. In the final battles of 1945, teenage Hitlerjugend units fought and died in Berlin against Soviet tanks. Girls were mobilized too, as nurses, air raid wardens, and assistants in factories and communication centers. Childhood had become war work. When the war ended, many survivors were left not only physically traumatized but emotionally disoriented. Some clung to Nazi beliefs, others felt betrayed. All had to confront the terrifying reality that they had been raised in a lie.
So, what did we learn? If you're a dictatorship and you want to control the future, start with the kids. Rewrite their textbooks, give them cool uniforms, tell them who to love and who to hate. Give them badges for loyalty. And when the war is over, you've got a generation wondering, what the hell just happened? But hey, at least they got good at marching in straight lines. Anyway, that's how to ruin a generation in under 12 years.
And for me, it's now time to go through my search history, delete everything that is Nazi related, delete all the photos of Nazi propaganda and all the swastikas, because there's way too much Nazi propaganda on my PC right now. What about you, Paul?
Oh my god, me too. I have to delete entire browser history, otherwise social credit score go down full, yo.
And yeah, that is everything you need to know about the Hitler Youth. And before you leave, Hubert has something more to say. Thank you so much for watching. Danke und einen schönen Tag noch.